let me introduce to you our guest on the show today, the Diet Doc, nutrition science, and 20-plus year contest prep expert who has helped athletes earn over 400 pro cards and more than 100 pro titles, Dr. Joe Klemczewski. He has earned degrees in physical therapy, health, nutrition, health education, literary journalism. He also has certifications as a strength and conditioning specialist with the NSCA and the International Society of Sports Nutrition. Father to 4 amazing children and husband to Tracy. He has created a wellness corporation, a fitness facility, and a sports supplement company specializing in proprietary protein formulations. He has competed in pro bodybuilding's largest venues with top 5 finishes at the Mr. International and Mr. Universe contests. Dr. Joe began licensing this Diet Doc business model in 2007 and has helped develop almost 50 Diet Doc franchise weight loss centers across North America, Australia, Singapore, New Zealand, and the UK. Dr. Joe's staff and license owners continue to work with the highest level athletes, models, and the general public through his innovative nutrition program. Joe electrifies and educates audiences at universities, fitness camps, medical organizations, Fortune 500 companies, and school systems. He was a contributing science editor for Chalo Publishing for 14 years. His articles regularly appeared in Natural Bodybuilding and Fitness, Exercise for Men, and Best Body magazines. He has written for numerous magazines, websites including eDiets, and has contributed to fitness industry books and as an editor for physiology textbooks as well. His book, The Diet Doc's Guide to Permanent Weight Loss, co-authored with Dr. Scott Uloth, MD, was released in 2009 by Harvest House Publishing. In 2014, he co-authored another great book with Corey Post, PhD, The Diet Doc, 50 Days to Your Best Body Life. With great pleasure, I welcome to the show the Diet Doc, Dr. Joe Klemczewski. So welcome, Mr. Dr. Joe, to the show today.
Thank you, Matt. Just a pleasure to be here. I know you've got a lot of great things happening in your own life, so for you to take the time to talk to me is an honor on this side as well.
Well, thank you. Well, it's an honor as well on my front, and I've seen and known you now for a few years, and you just keep getting bigger and better. Everyone I talk to has such great things to talk about you, and you're always helping so many people. So it's really a pleasure to dig in and learn Dr. Joe's mindset and what makes him who he is, his backstory, and the lessons you've learned along the way, the things you've gone through, because you've gone through quite a journey over the years. So for basic listeners starting here, give a backstory of who Dr. Joe is and where you kind of started the whole evolution of the Diet Doc and where that took place.
Are you going to make me pull out the whole Indiana farm boy story now?
I would love that.
Going way back there. But literally just growing up in Indiana, northern Indiana, to a working class family. And my dad did a few things in his career, most of which were around sales. But it is kind of an agricultural area. And so we had a hobby farm growing up and got to dabble in some of that stuff and just be part of the great outdoors. And now as I've gotten older, I've definitely moved to the urban side. And so my kids don't really get a taste of that, but, it's still part of Tracy and I, and we consider ourselves definitely part of that Midwestern culture, but certainly kind of spreading our wings, as you said, all over the world. And it's just been a fun journey. But I've been around the block a few times.
More than a few times. But it's interesting because, in the industry that you're in and that I'm also involved in as well, having the background that you have as far as the university, the college background, the PhD, explain that value and the work you had to put in with that whole process to get you to where you are today.
That's a good segue into or from, my family life, because I was, as I said, very, very working class, kind of lower middle income, and college just wasn't really something that we talked about. And I had seen my older brother go off to college, and I thought, as I was still in high school, wow, that's a possibility. What could that mean for me? And I was I was definitely looking for something different than the life I had known. I mean, I know so much of our personality traits are genetic, and I'm definitely wired to be that hyper, always looking on the edges kind of guy. So I knew I wanted to get out of town. I wanted to do something bigger and better, and I had a vision for what I wanted. I didn't know exactly what that would look like, but I knew I wanted more. You know, kind of a big concept is what's around the next corner every time you arrive. You know, what's next? So I did. When I was 17, I decided my parents couldn't afford college. I didn't think I was good enough for college. I really didn't have a lot of confidence. So I went into the military and thought, you know, this was totally non-wartime stuff, you know, mid to late 80s. So Vietnam was 20 years behind us. The entire Gulf situation had not even happened yet. And so I was just, you know, hey, let's go into the military and use the GI Bill and see if I can muster a little college experience. And I just loved it. I mean, I fell in love with academia immediately. So I got out of the military as soon as I could, because once I got grounded and felt like this was something I could do and really wanted to do, I came out and just went full steam in and haven't stopped. I'm still in school now. I've taken off a semester here and there, but for about the last, 25, 26 years, I've been in school nonstop. Actually longer, probably almost 30 years.
Wow. So when you were in the military, were you actually in school at that time, or was it just basically you were serving a certain time frame?
No, yeah, even like I was in the Air Force in what's called a strategic air command base, which is pretty high alert, war readiness, that kind of thing. So my recruiter, of course, giving us the answers that we wanted to hear to get us in, was like, oh yeah, it's just 9 to 5 stuff. You can do anything you want, go to school. You know, I went in under an administrative job service code, so I could. But then all of a sudden I'm on this high alert kind of base. And so it's 12-hour shifts rotating here and there. So it wasn't perfect. And that's why I wanted out as soon as I felt like I could do this on my own. It would be hard. I mean, I gave up all of those benefits, no more free college. Once I got out, I was working 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs at a time to get my way through. But by then I really felt like I had my legs under me. So I was going to college there on military bases. Colleges and professors come in and you know, do normal classes just for military personnel. So, you know, you would see on my transcripts from this college and this college, whatever was close to that base at the time.
It sounds like that base for you really built the foundation for you going into your academia afterward, correct?
I would definitely say that. That was a couple years I needed. I was hyper, and I always kind of tell people I pretty much raised myself. Yeah. I have great parents. But I was just always somewhere else. I loved them, and that was a good, you know, home for me because they gave me the freedom to do those kind of things. And so when I was 17, I mean, I went off into the Air Force, and it was a good couple years of growing up and gaining some independence. Absolutely. Wow.
So how old were you when you went into your first semester of actual college for your PhD, I guess, in that process?
Yeah, when I came out of the Air Force, I immediately started full-time in school, and then I was majoring in marketing and business administration, and got about 3 years into that, you know, all the core basic classes and a lot of good business background. And then I just decided, you know, I'm loving athletics. I was very active. I had started lifting weights by the time I was 12 years old, and I was lifting hard, and I mean, from the time I was 12 years old, I was not missing workouts. I was reading Flex magazine, Muscle Fitness magazine, and I was in my hobby life already there. So I decided I wanted to do something that was in that kind of a physical science realm. So at that time, this again goes back into the 80s, exercise science really wasn't there yet. Physiology, things like that, they just weren't really developed concepts or industries. So the closest thing I could find was physical therapy, physiotherapy for you guys in Canada. But, and I loved it. I went, you know, for that. It was very tough to get into, but, I did it and moved to Indianapolis to the IU Medical Center and, became an orthopedic physical therapist first. Then when I came out, I just assumed this is great. This is my career. I love this. This is what I'm going to do. But I still had my bodybuilding career kind of growing and grinding along. And I thought, I'm just so in love right now with learning, and my mind was expanding and opening to see all these things that a kid never sees when he's at home. So I just kept going to school, and I ended up finishing that first doctorate in my late 20s. Just kind of went straight through. Still working, but doing that part time. Yeah, we didn't have growing children at the time. Just probably a newborn or two, then, so it was easier. And at that point, it was all for me. It was all just for fun and bodybuilding.
Wow.
Then once I graduated and became a pro, that all happened kind of at once. I, started competing when I was 20. So I think I was about 27 when I won my pro card and finished that doctorate. And all of a sudden I thought, I might have something here. I could probably do something entrepreneurial with this. And even though I love physical therapy, I can always do that and bring it into what my business vision was. But I took the big jump into, owning my own business, starting with a training facility.
So here's a question I want to ask you. So you actually dove into a few businesses though, when you started, correct? Like you had the sports supplement side, you had the fitness facility side, you got Diet Doc franchise now. Like you've really had your hands and mind into a few different areas of your life, correct?
Yeah, it all started with as a physical therapist, like most people. If you're in the gym working hard, people see, wow, that guy's, got a decent physique or whatever. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Everybody's asking you questions. And so even as a staff physical therapist at an orthopedic clinic, I started doing some consultations on the side. I started developing some nutrition programming. And so that was developing. And when my wife and I decided, let's kind of leave our hometown. We had left our small town to go to Indianapolis for school, had come back. We decided this really wasn't where we wanted to stay. So we moved, 6 hours south down to Evansville, and it was to buy what was really a training studio. It was an open gym, but it was very small. And at that point in the evolution of personal training and gyms and so forth, there were no personal trainers. It was just getting started.
Wow.
So we developed that. We created nutrition programming and really had a thriving regional gym or training facility. Wow. Then the sports supplement company came next, and then our Diet Doc licensing company came after that.
What's interesting about your whole story, Dr. Joe, because I've known you now for a few years, and that makes me it makes you young, makes me young at the same time.
Yes.
And is you work with some of the biggest names in the sport. You've actually worked with some of the biggest names that really weren't even big at the time, and they worked with you to put them really where they are today. I don't mean to say it like that, but I'm honestly being the truth, because I've known you from probably 7 years now, and you're very humble. And if you guys meet Dr. Joe, you'll notice that he doesn't really boast. He's just very calm and cool what he does, but he's got this mind full of all this encyclopedia of information. So with that process, when things evolve, like that's 25 years of evolution from, like you said, personal training when it really wasn't even known, seeing all these people evolve. How do you, does that bring you kind of excitement or gratification to see the people you work with or trained with or trained kind of evolve over the years?
I just am not really the kind of person who looks back. And I'll give you a physical picture of that. If you were to see me at the mall with my family or at Disney World, you would see Joe about 20 feet ahead and everybody else just struggling to keep up. I don't get behind people and push, and I don't stay around and hover and tell them what to do. I'm just out there always moving forward. So as what you said, some of those things that we did way back then, you can look back and I can look back and say, yeah, we pioneered that. We created that. That wasn't ever seen before until we did it. But I'm always moving forward and looking to the next thing. And so I agree. We made a lot of friends and we helped a lot of people along the way, but that also helped me. I mean, that every time I was able to bring somebody along and elevate their career, do something, it was something I was just enjoying as well. I mean, it was as fun for me as it was for them, and then helped me then develop new processes and gain the experience from working with that person.
That's phenomenal. That's what makes you unique, Dr. Joe. So with that being said, explain maybe one of your biggest challenges. Like you've gone through a lot, 25 plus years of business evolution, training facility, sports supplement company. What's one of your biggest challenges you had to face that really helped shift or change? Maybe it took everything out of you to really get over it, but it taught you a life lesson.
This one's pretty easy because part of the personality traits I'm describing definitely have an edge that cuts the other way. And when you're somebody who's hyper and always on the go, you can be very impulsive. And so early in my career, I was making some decisions and accepting things that I should have said no to. I was actually watching the Shark Tank the other day, and Mark Cuban said, the biggest problem entrepreneurs make is that they drown in opportunity. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And I was always in that growth mode. I had people saying, "Hey, you should do this. You should do this. Let's start this. Let's start that." And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And, some of those things failed, and they failed big. And it kind of, they also create opportunity. One of my best business mentors at one point said, "Joe, every time you swing for the fence like that and you strike out, you're going to see that everybody involved still gets to a better place." Wow. Those experiences, falling teaches us a lot more than staying up. And so I agree with all that. And I love those lessons I learned, but some of them were painful ones. And it just has tempered me a little bit. So now I think a little bit more and delay my actions just a little bit longer.
That is a huge lesson to share on this podcast show. Like, that is a massive lesson. Now, you don't have to share this, Joe, but what can you give an example of one of your most challenging specific situations you had to deal with, and maybe the mindset it took for you to overcome it? Because obviously, in business, being an entrepreneur takes a lot more than just 9-to-5 work, and and overcoming your basic challenges in the course of a day. There's so much more behind the scenes. So can you give some specific techniques that you overcame or used to overcome your biggest challenge? And if you want to share some techniques, go ahead. But just sort of getting information on how you think that way or how you process that.
I think over time with experience, because all the people I know in business, and even when I was younger, when I was 27 years old, I remember walking into my training facility and I had a couple great business clients already. These guys who were in their 40s, 50s, 60s and had been there, done that. And I was gaining a tremendous amount of mentorship. And I'm very open like that. I don't tell people, "Hey, I want to do it myself," and so forth. I'm begging people for information. I'm constantly mining their experience. And, I do remember telling one particular client, I don't even know if I could stay in business till the end of the week. I mean, we just started this thing. I left my job as a physical therapist to come down here. Don't know anybody in this city, dragged my family down here. I slashed my income in half. I'm in my, late 20s at this point. And yet I'm never going to work for anybody else as long as I live. I love it. I will make this work. There's nothing anybody could do to stop me. It's just going to happen. And that's what I did. I remember that next summer having to actually get a part-time job just to cash flow my business. And along the way, anybody who's in business realizes that whether you've got a $1 billion company or you're just starting out, you're always facing challenges, ups and downs. And you have to be ready for that. You have to constantly keep your eye on the horizon. Mm-hmm. You have to anticipate change. You have to know the industry you're in. You have to look at, other markets and constantly surround yourself with people that can give you that kind of experience that you might not have. So I really think that the biggest thing I could ever say is just create a community of people that know more than you and listen. Keep your eyes open. Get your eyes off of just the day to day and give yourself some time to think. To just anticipate.
That's huge. So what you're saying is one of the things you've really taken away from all your experiences is the power of listening.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Also influence and mentorship.
Definitely.
Excellent. That's huge. Definitely. That is awesome. As far as even daily challenges that you face right now, things you go through right now, like you've gone through a lot of years of experiences. How do you deal with challenges now? Like if something just crazy happened tomorrow, how does Dr. Joe deal with it on a mindset level now?
I think I do with the time I've had in business and just life in general. I can keep an even keel mentally. I'm not quite as reactionary, so I can look at, okay, this is a challenge, but what's the next best step? If you truly understand that life is probably not going to end, you can work your way through just about anything. Well, one of my current mantras, because I am kind of a high anxiety guy, I mean, that just comes with having that personality type, is just, it doesn't matter. I mean, look, I really look at life as, and I don't want to sound really cliche, but a miracle, a gift, and almost kind of humorous. There's a philosophy called absurdism, kind of a sister to existentialism. And you have to just keep in perspective how insane it is that we're even here. I mean, you're talking about 4.6 billion years ago, there's a bang. It takes billions of years for the universe to cool down to the point where planets can form. Then you have millions of years of evolution to the point where Homo sapiens arrived 70 to 200,000 years ago. And any step along the way, any tiny little step, you and I wouldn't be here.
Yep.
Our bloodline, our ancestors wouldn't be here. And here's Matt Park and Joe Klemczewski having this conversation through Skype. It's so bizarre that you could say, Joe, you're going to lose it all tomorrow. And I would say, okay, I'll just go find another way. It doesn't matter. And we get so tied to hanging on and clinging to every little thing we have. And it just doesn't matter. That's the phrase I keep saying to myself. It doesn't matter. Just enjoy the moment. Do everything you can to build what you want. Explore it, live it, love it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Wow. That is so powerful. You got me excited over here.
That's saying something, because you're the mindset guru.
I'm going to jump up here and start doing jumping jacks. What is your routine like? Because, your mindset, Dr. Joe, is very, very aligned, very present. You're obviously have this high energy about you, but you also control it. And I can tell you use it towards, the elements of focus and helping other people and vice versa. What does your routine look like in the morning? What time do you get up? What do you do in the morning? What's your rituals like?
Well, several years ago, I want to say 7, 8, 9 years ago, I went to Alberta to this fantastic weekend kind of seminar thing by this guy named Matt Park. And one of the things I took away was block scheduling and being very intentional about routine, exactly as you're asking. And I am hardworking. I think, that's kind of obvious because I'm always busy doing something. I'm that ADD kind of guy, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that it's very intentional or purposeful. It doesn't mean that you're always accomplishing anything. So when you get to those points where you feel scattered and am I really harnessing that energy into something valuable, into something that's going to get me where I want to go long term, it really does come down to being able to say no to certain things, being able to not only say yes to certain things, but schedule them. Say, I must make time for this. I don't care if that has to wait. And that's hard for me because, again, my brain wants to get it all done, check off the list, and just keep going. But to really focus on what matters most is something I had to learn. And I think meeting with you all those years ago helped. I remember, actually, this is another great little story. But coming back that weekend, I was in the Canadian airport. And because my brain was on that topic, I probably wouldn't have even seen this otherwise. But I picked up this book at the Alberta or Calgary airport called Mindset by Carol Dweck. And of course, now she's one of the pioneers in the whole topic. And, that line of thought just has stayed with me, and I've expanded it even through my last 2 degree programs have been moving me away from health science and more into, social and psych sciences.
Wow. That's powerful. Thank you so much.
You changed my life, Mr. Park. I owe it all to you.
Well, I'm very grateful. Thank you so much. But I could go on for the next 2 minutes about how you've changed my life. And don't worry, I'll be getting tidbits during the interview on that. But in regards to, I want to go and just discuss a bit about the Diet Doc method and the Diet Doc, because this is one thing that I'm very passionate about. And not that, and I, because I've known you for so long, and when I first met you, this is actually true, is when I first met you, I had never heard about your methods. And a friend of mine, Nadine, actually mentioned about you, and she says, you got to meet Dr. Joe. And I did. And that was when INBF just started, the very first year. And I remember I was so frustrated with all these different methods out there. And I remember sitting and thinking, I'm going to email Dr. Joe. This is a long time ago. This is 9 years ago. And connecting with you and you coming out, like going back to that time when you came out, Dr. Joe, when you presented and showed your philosophies there was a group of us all in that room, listening to you speak. You were the reason, I don't mean to, I appreciate what you told me, but you were literally the reason I got my pro card that year. And I was, I'm not the most genetically gifted kind of guy. So I want to really express and learn from, to the viewers here, what exactly does Dr. Joe do? What is his methods that make him different? Because the universe is flooded with industry, is flooded with different people out there.
In our company, we work with a general population, people who are just struggling to lose weight or improve their health. And then we have our performance division where we do a lot of coaching and work with athletes and so forth. And anybody who's just aggressively seeking a physique that they might need occupationally, a lot of actors and so forth. We have, MFA fighters even up in Canada and so forth, or MMA fighters. But, in the genre of working with you as a bodybuilding competitor, which is what I, grew up cutting my teeth on. I just was bitten by that passion when I was in my early teens. And it was a big part of my developments going into, just physical medicine. But it gave me that outlet as a young youth to have something to progress with physically, just to channel that energy into something athletic. And so along the way, you do learn about things like genetics. And I certainly don't have the best genetics either. And so for you and your, we're both lightweight pros. We're never going to be a big, 250-pound heavyweight. So you and I obviously had to make a way based on conditioning, on presentation, on all the other things that we could do to outclass some of the bigger people who are more genetically gifted. So in working with you, it was all about consistency, and it was all about making sure that we could maintain as much muscle mass as we could while achieving that conditioning. And then the peaking process, that's what people love to talk about because they think it's so magical and there's some kind of a secret formula. If you just do everything right, then you're going to wake up on that day of the show and look so much better than you were the night before. And it's like somebody just, set a spell over you when you were sleeping. And of course, that's not true. It's a matter of just making sure that you are physically at your absolute best at the moment you need it. And it's not even so much that peaking is that one moment in time. It's how can I achieve that wave where it's just cresting and I can sustain it through the entire day of a contest or the weekend. It's not, oh my gosh, I peaked 10 minutes too early and then I was in last place instead of first. So it's really understanding the physiology and the science of what's happening in the body that's common to all of us. It's very universal. But then what's unique are the way that's expressed in different body types. So, the phenotype of somebody being an ectomorph or a mesomorph and their metabolic capacity being this or that, those are things. First of all, I think it takes that foundation of knowledge. I mean, it's an advantage of mine, I believe, in our success because not everybody has gone to school for that. Not everybody has a doctorate in nutrition. And so I'm fortunate and lucky that I have that to bring into the industry. But then there's also the artful side, which is knowing, I've got to really dig in with this person and get to know their physiology, get to know how their body works, make sure that we're on the same page and I'm reading all of the right cues so that when it gets time to make those really critical decisions, we're making the right ones. So I think it's about as perfect a blend of science and art as you can get.
Love it. So when you work, like you work with thousands and thousands of people over the years, now how do you manage all that? Like how do you really, that's a lot of people when because your team right now, is there 8 of you or 9 of you? How many are on your team?
We have a core staff of about 4 full-time, professionals, and then we have a couple that we contract here and there. For example, we have an operation director, or medical director, a dietetics director who are employed by us, but contractually, we just use them for what we need, curriculum development, that kind of thing. We also have peaking directors. We have 4 peaking directors, which help us directly with the clients that we're involved with. And then out of our license owners, we have almost 100 program owners now around the world. The last 2 or 3 years has really been a almost vertical climb. And out of those program owners around the world, many of them have tremendous experience as competitors and educations. And so we have a sub-license where they can become involved as a coach as well. So as they're working with their clients, everybody's kind of in the same community. So I don't personally get to work with everybody. I have my clients that I might have had for a long, long time. I have our 4 peaking directors who are all phenomenal pros. I mean, world champions, even IFBB pros. But, they're right there on our inner circle working with clients. And then all of our coaches are tied in with their clients. So, there are layers to this growing circle, but it's just a fantastic community of collective experience and knowledge and support. I mean, we're helping each other along the way. And so I might not be the one who's directly on the front lines with every client anymore. But every single week, I'm hearing about all of these people on our staff creating new champions, new pro card winners, and so forth. And that's fun to be a part of. Maybe that's how I should have answered one of your questions earlier: is how do you manage it all, and what's tough? What are challenges? Growing and keeping quality and maintaining a business that you still want to be involved in is tough sometimes. You just have to have the right people, and you have to be willing to let go of some things. And as the saying goes, letting go of good to get great.
That's such a good point. What is the biggest lesson or tip that you could share that you feel is the most important, the one thing that's the most important to lead your team and really keep them basically motivated, connected, and their very best?
That's a great question, because I think something I might have used to think was a strength was that I don't micromanage. I love independence. I love people to bring their talent in and shine. But I've come to realize that some people definitely need more structure, and they thrive on kind of being behind the scenes and saying, "Hey, just tell me what to do, and I'll do it, the greatest you've ever seen." But they might not be quite as confident or as much of a self-starter. So for us now, managing a growing staff, to really give the kind of inputs and keep everybody together is our biggest goal. How can we keep everybody tied together? How are we giving them the best processes and information? So that's why our entire inner circle, people like Dr. Corey Probst and Steve, our communication director, our entire days are spent just communicating with our program owners, helping them become the business and fitness entrepreneurs they want to be.
Interesting. So when you're training your team, and keeping them really on the stage of growth, how much time and energy do you put into learning? Because obviously you're a big learning component. You're always learning. But how do you impact that into your team? How do you influence that to your team? Is it every week? How do you do that?
Yeah, on my easel, I have a standing workstation right here, and the only thing that you can see on it is a weekly schedule, something based on my experience with you, I decided I needed. And so I flow each day of exactly what I'm going to do. So there's that block scheduling. And the very first thing you will see that I do every day, once my day is outlined and moving forward, is communicate with our owners. So I search for their email. I get on our Facebook groups and so forth, and I'm making sure that everybody has what they need and questions are answered and so forth, and they're getting the support that they need. But in that natural organic flow, there are just tons of great questions. With almost 100 program owners, it's fantastic for me to see somebody post a question And I might see it 30 minutes later and 15 people have already responded and they've got this great conversation happening. And the way I continue to contribute to that, Matt, is I intentionally stay in school. I know one of the things that can bring me down, if I ever feel like, man, I'm just not where I should be, I feel a little lethargic, or I'm just kind of depressed, or I don't feel like there's something really out there attracting my attention, I very quickly, I've trained myself to very quickly just assess, what am I really spending my time on? What are my days like? What's my life like? And people need something to look forward to. As soon as you don't have something you're working for or reaching for, or that you have hope for, you're just nothing. Your life is going to be a blob of nothingness. So I have to stay busy with something constructive. And I think that can kind of sound like a coping mechanism, like I'm just going to ignore reality and just stay busy, but it's really not. It's I want to continue learning. Curiosity and exploration. Those are character traits that I think are innately in some of us, and others might have to develop them with a little more work. But I know I have to stay busy, and for me, a lot of that is school. So, like I said, just last year, I finished another master's degree in creative and professional writing. And within that degree, you pick a genre. My genre was social science writing, or actually literary journalism. But my thesis was a book based in personality psychology. So I was writing, and I spent 4 years working in social science information. And throughout this curriculum, I read almost 150 books to write my book, which was, my thesis. And so I came out and I thought, this is amazing. This is what I want to spend my time writing, and researching from now on. And, of course, I work with Corey. She's a psychologist, and she's been with me for 10 years, now a business partner. And so I was moving my interest closer to hers. I've got the physiology, the nutrition stuff down, been doing it forever. I love it. I keep looking on the horizon there. But I know that we need that information as well. You need to get into the mind and the brain. So I decided after about a semester, I'm not finished. I want to keep expanding. So I'm now in another master's program in social psychology.
Wow. You are always learning. This is fantastic.
But it's what keeps me interested in life, I guess. But then, like you said, the original question was, how do you get good information to your team, to your staff? Whatever I'm working on, that's what's on my mind, and that's what's going to come out. That's what I'm going to talk about. And so I think it's a great evolution for our company to continue to be able to live through some of those experiences we have. And we love mentoring people to do the same. One of our license owners in Manhattan right now is just starting a nutrition program. So he's going to be getting his bachelor's degree in nutrition. I have another one I spoke to on the other side of the country who's just finishing, and now he's going to become a registered dietitian because he wants to grow more. And one of our peaking directors, when I first started working with him as a client and helped him win his pro card, we talked about school and so forth, and he ended up graduating with a degree in exercise science. So, some of that stuff is infectious. And I think if you surround yourself with people who are high energy and who want to keep an open mind, you're going to find out that a lot of people really want the same thing. They just might not have known how to get there. And you can really give a lot of good information.
Here's a question for you. So when you're learning, because you and Corey are always evolving on your learning capacity, on your knowledge capacities, do you, for you personally, do you feel that you have to, obviously you must be able to read books on your own, listen to material on your own, but do you feel that you always have to go to school or college to take that next level step into even diving in deeper into the sciences, or do you dive in pretty deep on your own time?
I'm going to say I personally love the value of having a mentor, a coach, an instructor, and I'll explain it a couple ways. When I was 20 years old, I went to a concert, and I love music, always been very musical as a consumer, love music. So I come back from this concert and I'm like, oh, I'm going to learn how to play the keyboards. And I had a great keyboard player. And so I buy this keyboard and I never learned. So then several years later, I come back from a concert and I'm like, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar. And I get a guitar and the guitar just sits there. So now this year, I have an instructor as exactly 1 year ago. And now because I have an instructor, I'm playing guitar. It took me 25 years to learn that lesson. And school is the same way for me. Of course, I love to read on my own, and even for entertainment. I just started a great fiction book last night. But when it comes down to learning something that I really want to just rip apart and understand, I could try on my own. But what about those people who have been doing it for 30, 40, 50 years and have a vast experience that I could never get from a book or a YouTube video? So the whole reason I decided to go for this master's I'm in right now is because when I finished the prior one, and I had this book that I'm really proud of, I loved. It's a memoir infused with that foundation of personality psychology. I thought, I now want to write this, but I so loved having the peers and the mentors that helped me write that last one and how much I learned from them. I want that same thing here. This is a much bigger project. I mean, I've already got more than 1,000 pages of notes, and I've got more than a couple hundred pages written, and I'm just in the research phase. I haven't even started actually writing this yet. And so for me to say, I'm just going to do this on my own in my spare time, it's going to be like that piano or that guitar. It's just not going to happen to the same capacity as involving other people and creating some accountability and some energy.
Wow, that is so really, the power of the mentorship and the coaching or the professor or the instructor, you can clearly, express that in all them years, how important that is to you.
Yeah. I mean, there are so many brilliant people on this planet and so many people who know amazing things. And I don't, I want to learn from them. And there's also a good social connection piece of that. I'm a shy, introverted person on my own, but when I'm in those social contexts where you're learning from other people, you find out what really is most important in life. Mm-hmm. And it's meeting that next person. It's making that next friend. It's just irreplaceable. And I love that.
Here's a question for you that I know listeners would thinking about this, or at least I'm sure some would. When you're looking for a mentor, a coach, or an instructor, do you always, from your experience in the last 20 some years, do you always, like, some people maybe can't or are unable to pay $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 to go to school. Maybe their budget only allows for $500, or $1,000. So what would you suggest people like that are looking for that next coach, the mentor, or that person to drive them to that next level? What's your comments on that?
Mm-hmm. Well, certainly investigate all of your options. For me, for example, remember, I left home when I was 17 without a dime in my pocket, but I was willing to work. I was willing to work 3, 4, 5 jobs at a time. I was doing some very bizarre things to work my way through school, such as I remember when I was at the IU Med Center, I was cleaning parking lots at between 2 and 3 in the morning while all my classmates were in school. On the weekend, a friend of mine let me work for his company where I would go clean houses for elderly people. On Saturdays, I would also work part-time occasionally in a bookstore doing inventory. And then I would do catering events on Friday and Saturday nights. One of those guys dressed up in a little tuxedo shirt, pouring iced tea and so forth. And I was just finding these jobs wherever I could, based on the hours I needed, because I was in school from 8 till 5. And so, to say, well, what if you can't afford it? Find a way to afford it. Find a way to get it done. If that's what you want to do it. But if you truly just say, not an option, I just cannot, then I would say you're going to have to look for that next best thing, which might be listening to podcasts of Matt Park or tying into other forms. For example, a book club, finding a community, anybody who's doing the things you want to do, you're always going to be able to find a way. It doesn't always have to be in a university or cost a lot of money, but you have to find a way.
That is so powerful. What a lesson. You make it happen. If you want it bad enough, you just make it happen.
Yeah.
That is incredible. I love it, Dr. Joe. Thank you for sharing that. So going into the next area, share with us a bit about, like, even specifically some real specific things you do to get yourself into state or ready to go in the morning. When you wake up, what do you do when you wake up? Do you go work out in the morning? When do you train? The specifics of that get you ready for your day to go rock the day.
I may have a lot more to learn on that front from you. I remember some of your habits where you wake up, and you should probably be answering this instead of me, but you wake up and you write certain questions or you journal things, and you have these processes that I loved. And I try to do that on a little bit more of a macro scale because it's difficult for me to just immediately do that kind of thing in the morning with 4 children, one out of the house now, and a spouse and those kind of things, and a staff that might be here or not here in the morning. So my routine is sometimes not always controllable by me as much as I would like it to. So my routine in the morning is to hit the alarm clock, and within 10 minutes, I'm on my way to work, just grabbing my stuff and coming to work. That way I can feel like I'm locking into my schedule and so forth. And it is kind of a gradual process where I might start, like I said, scanning some information, making sure I'm getting the day set up, communicating with the right people. But then I'm tied into my schedule, trying hard to stick with it, get the right things done, because obviously it's disrupted. But as far as a routine that I could share or help anybody, maybe to find some kind of structure, I'm not the guy who can help you with that, Matt. I'm a little too scattered and hectic myself.
That's okay. You're honest and you're still rocking life in other areas. Don't worry.
The one thing I can say that I do is I've recognized that I need to have some focus. I need to be able to walk away from distraction. And so I've tried things like in our office here. I have a writing lab. So when I need to get away from just email, phone, people, I need to write some blogs or chapters for a book, or sometimes I'm editing even textbooks and that kind of thing. I have a physical environment I can go to and say, that's what this space is for. I think that's helpful. Even on sometimes on the weekends, I just need to get away to my own little place and do something. But yeah, I don't have any real magical routines that help that yet. I'm gonna listen to you for that.
It's all good. I appreciate that, but I'll definitely take lessons from you too. So I want to dive into the next round of questions for you, Dr. Joe. So the next round of questions, which we're going to rock into, is called the Peak 5 Questions. And I'm pumped to learn what some of these questions are for you, Dr. Joe. So are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. So the first question I have for you, which we've covered a bit, but I want to hear specifically, if you do, a name if you could, or even names in general. So number 1, do you have a mentor, coach, or influential person in your life right now?
Nobody that I would say is specifically a mentor, but I am extremely grateful that I have 3 or 4 friends that I could tell anything in the world to and not be afraid of their reaction or disappointment. I really have a core group. I don't have tons of friends I do a lot with, but these are people including Corey, who I work with, and Steve, who I work with, and Tony, who I work with. I mean, there are some people there that I can really count on, and that's important. But somebody that I probably learn more from on a day in and day out basis is definitely Corey. Yeah, she's got a fantastic background. Her education, from physiology to counseling to a PhD in health psychology, doesn't even begin to encompass who she is. She's the most disciplined person I've ever met. She's the hardest working person I've ever met. And those things are weaknesses as much as strengths, because I sometimes have to knock her down and say, just stop working, stop doing so much, start living, life a little more. But everything that she dives into, she exhausts. She learns so much, and she's a great counselor. She's the kind of person who loves to share and to listen to you. And it's funny because there are things that she often will say, and you might not even understand how powerful it is. Your needs aren't quite there at that point, but yet years later or months later, it's like, holy crap, this thing is so amazing. And I've had to go back to her and say, that one thing that you were talking about, like way back then. And she's definitely a powerful influence in my life.
That is so awesome. I'm really glad. That's so important to have her in our life, number one. Number two, what is your favorite book? And you are an author of 2, by the way. Are they available on Amazon and also in Indigo?
Yes. The current one, the best one, is called 50 Days to Your Best Life. Mm-hmm. And that was co-authored with Corey. That really is a cornerstone project for a company. Everything that you could ever want to know about nutrition and mindset and physiology is in that book. And now our next projects are splintering off to really dive deeper into certain topics. But that's a foundational book. And I think it's available just about everywhere, online. Yep.
So what would you say, Dr. Joe, would be one book that you've read over the years that's your favorite book that's been the most, like a cornerstone book for you personally on your personal level?
It's going to be tough for me to label just one, but I would say when I read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, mm-hmm. One of those books that's probably been translated into, almost all the languages in the world and so forth, that got me started looking more into not just philosophy and psychology, but truly this existential experience of life. What am I here for? What is my life going to be? And of course, it has to be the right time. If I would have read that when I was 16 years old, it wouldn't have meant anything. So, reading something like that in my 40s, and then moving on to other ones like Staring at the Sun by Irvin Yalom, and another great psych book about death anxiety and things like that. And then just on and on and on. Joseph Campbell, of course. You start reading people who have been there when it comes to the human experience. That's the kind of information that probably has pushed me in the direction I'm going now.
Question number 3, what is your favorite quote?
I love quotes. I collect them. I have file folders full of them that I can even just topically draw upon. But the one that I love probably the most is an easy, almost cliche one, which is go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life you have imagined, of course, by Henry David Thoreau. So as simple as that is, and is something everybody knows, go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life you have imagined. I'm not sure you could be as succinct in just saying this is what matters in life.
I love that.
So what's yours? I'm gonna interview you for a second. I want to hear a Matt Park quote.
No problem. My favorite quote is, what can be conceived in thought can be attained through action and persistent faith. That's mine.
Awesome.
Love it. So question number 4, if you could tell your 20-year-old self one thing, what would it be? And if you don't mind telling us, how many years back that would be for you. So 20 years.
I am 46.
Okay, 46.
Don't mind saying that at all, yes.
Excellent.
I would say, be patient. Be less impulsive. All the things we've covered a little bit already. I would tell myself, relax a little bit. It doesn't matter. And it's a hard thing because I still value drive and action and ambition. I would be bored to death without that. But at the same time, I think you need to know when to stop and sharpen the axe and when to stop and relax. And I do a lot more of that. I mean, you're not going to find me online at midnight anymore like I used to be, and returning email to clients on Sunday afternoons, and all the things you do when you're young because you feel you're so accountable to everybody else. And that's not going to happen now. Now I'm at home watching a movie with my kids and that kind of thing.
Love that. That's so much more structure here. I love it. Absolutely love it. Question number 4 is, if there were no limits, what would you contribute to in the world? And actually, I notice you have also your own foundation right now as well.
Now, is this kind of like I would love everybody to have a puppy and world peace kind of thing? Or,
no.
Or
if you could think of something that you would contribute to that really is in your heart that you resonate with,
okay.
What would that be? A contribution of some kind. Doesn't have to be financial. It can be just what you feel.
I would love to see humanity start to erase boundaries. And by that, I mean, as primates, if you will, or people, our race, our people, we need connection deeply. One of the basic psychological needs. We have to be together. We die without each other. A professor that I just wrote an essay about from my school in Connecticut, where I still do some alumni work and teach and so forth. This is one of the greatest writers of our time. He's a decorated, award-winning writer. He's almost 70 years old, and he walked into this workshop a couple weeks ago in Connecticut, and he said, I'm working on a project right now, and I want it to steal a little of the loneliness from the world. Because we are all lonely. We're desperately lonely. And he's exactly right. Because we who need each other, we need connection. We're not good at asking for it. We're not good at admitting we need it. We're not good at being vulnerable. And at the same time, we cloak those insecurities in division and hatred and stereotype and tribalism to this day. You know, you can look at every form of bigotry and racism and hate and division and say it's all because we're just afraid of those people who are different from us. So to eliminate every boundary in the world, to look at the poets and the mystics of our time from John Lennon and just everybody who's always had that vision to imagine the world without war, without those kinds of things. It's as simple. It's so simple as just saying, I can love that person next to me like I love myself. I can look at somebody and instead of immediately start thinking of how different we are, think of, what makes that person tick. I'm really, truly interested in who that person is. And instead, we want to put up a wall and start this hierarchical crap. We're, pecking order and pack mentality and so forth is in our DNA. And I want it gone. That's my contribution.
I love it. That is such a true statement as far as connection, with social media now and it's almost growing by the minute. And what you mentioned about the connection part, it's so important because even right now as we're connecting, you and me over Skype, Dr. Joe, I can see you, I can see what you're doing. I'm grateful we have this experience. Better than nothing. But, obviously the true human connection of that energy exchange is so vitally important. So Dr. Joe, last question I want to ask you as well is, the big dream question. And the big dream question is, where is Diet Doc going to be in 3 to 5 years? What's your vision? What's your big dream with this?
That's a great question. And the reason I like it is it involves the dreams of so many other people. Every day we get to interact with someone who is starting a business, who's trying to help other people. And it's of course almost blasé to say, I want to help people. Mm-hmm. But when you find somebody who is interested in health and physical medicine and that kind of thing, you're talking about the true core of existence. Nothing else matters if you're sick and not healthy or, dying and so forth. And so you find health professionals have that nurturing, empathetic character that you think of when you consider nurses and so forth and doctors. And, these are the people I get to work with every day. And our vision for our company is to continue providing accessibility to everybody. We want one-on-one work. We want the greatest quality, but it does come back to connection. I've started a blog series on what that means because in an interview I did with Dr. Lane Norton and Sohee Lee just a few days ago, So he said, Joe, everything that I hear from my perspective is that I want to start a business so I can just do it at home on my couch for 3 hours a day and then go be a millionaire. And like, that's not the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, that's not business, but that's not life. As soon as you think that that's how things work, you're going to be bored and you're going to hate the human existence, the human experience. So to be with people and create community and that sense of everyone's in this together, it helps everybody thrive. So our business model is to continue recruiting people who want to be tied to that kind of a structure where you've got all of the resources, all of the science, all the physiology, but you also have mentors and peers and business leaders who can say, this is your dream of being a health and fitness entrepreneur. Let's make it happen. It's going to happen by partnering you with people who need you. And you're going to have this community of fantastic human beings.
And that's the difference that I love what you said about not just being the health and fitness leader, but the community of people and the mentors, which is, as you mentioned, Dr. Joe, from your experience in all them years, is critical to your success.
All of the clients that I have known throughout the years who have continued to do well, they've changed their life, they've changed their physique, their body, their health. The ones who maintain and sustain that, they always tell me the most important thing, Joe, was the community, was seeing you guys, being there for workshops and learning experiences and opportunities, and even fitness classes, and going off and doing other things in the community. My wife and I had dinner just last weekend with a couple that we met as clients. We helped them as a husband and wife lose 60 or 70 pounds each. And here we are years and years later, still hanging out and experiencing life together.
That is phenomenal. So Dr. Joe, where can we find you, Dr. Joe? How can people get a hold of you? What's your information?
Easiest place is thedietdoc.com. So you'll find all of our contact information there, and you can hunt me down.
Love it. And is there anything you'd like to express to everybody before we close the show? Any comments, suggestions, or ideas before we end?
Well, I'd like to just finish by giving you the credit you deserve for even having a show like this, and your interest in helping people become better is clearly something that's been in you your entire life. I've known you, as you said, for almost 10 years, and you're relentless. I know you're not going to stop doing this, and it's because I know your heart is to help other people live their best lives, and that's exactly what ties us together, my friend.
Thank you again, Dr. Joe. Appreciate your time. So until next time, Dr. Joe, have a great day, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you, Matt.